Hey guys, just want to thank you for stopping by and hang out with me while I work on this Batman piece.
Hey guys, so got this Batman sketch here, which is something I pulled from my sketchbook, except for the top here, which after I drew it in the sketchbook, and unfortunately I don't have that sketchbook in front of me or just ready to pull up. I could show you the original sketch, but what I did was scanned it into my computer and then did a little bit of stuff in Clip Studio. What I did was I created a perspective ruler to draw out the train, and I used that same perspective tool within Clip Studio to create the little city backdrop here. And yeah, I think the original sketch was just Batman. You could see where I kind of touched up little bits and pieces. And this was the original orientation as well. But then I figured, and maybe I'll regret this afterwards, I'm not sure. Like originally I was thinking the eye always goes left to right in a Z formation. That's how you read. So I typically like to do that on a page. And I have his cape coming down this way, and I thought that was enough. But I really feel like you focus more on Batman himself, and like his arm coming from here to here actually gives it more of a right to left feeling instead of a left to right feeling. So I decided to flip it over. So now his body will be this way, and I'm hoping that there'll be enough motion and lines in the cape, which I can play around with in some pencils, to make sure that it really feels left to right as opposed to the cape pulling your eye. It should be more about Batman. So we'll see how that comes together. I also didn't plan too much for this, so I'm just gonna go right into it. This is more of a exercise than something intended to be a finished drawing for a cover or anything like that. You know, just having fun and practicing the craft, you know? One of the things I want to do is sort of redraw the face here. As I flipped it over, I just want it to be more forward looking. And here it felt like he was looking to the left too much. I'm also a fan of the old splayed out bat ears. I gotta admit, I think it was Steve Rude who really turned me onto that. Steve, and then Darwin. Darwin was also a fan of those ears. Alright, so new Batman face. I think I'm okay with that. I tend to use really soft leads. I think this is an HB or something like that. I'm also not good at keeping track of the actual lead types and stuff. There was a time I was liking the harder edge stuff to sort of lay out the page, but over the years I've definitely been more pulled towards the heavier leads. Funny thing that happens when you switch a lot between digital and traditional, sometimes you'll find yourself hitting the back button on your pen or reaching up to go back to undo your pencil line or something. I think that's all the sort of penciling I needed to get done on this, at least on him. There's going to be all these trains that they're going, or trees. The train is blasting by. because I'm going to indicate some branches and stuff from the trees being blown by the train. Paper is always good to show motion. See a piece of paper in the air, you automatically know there's wind. So this is pretty early, not really early in the morning, but early as far as I just had breakfast and all that, and still drinking my coffee to clear my head. So this is kind of like flying without a net, you know, I'm just gonna go right into it. Right now I'm contemplating, I guess I'll use a ruler on the train. I want to kind of freehand it, but when a train is moving really fast, I think it probably lends itself better to rulers than a freehand look. Yeah. All right, so I'll start with that. I'm going to use, what are these called? I think they're just called bamboo. I love these pen markers. Pretty much anything Kuretake makes is amazing. So this has a little bit of give to it. When they get older, after the tip has really kind of lost its edge, I will draw a marker area around here. Because the marker itself is still good, it just no longer has the sharp edge that I would typically want to draw with. But it's still a good marker. There's no need to throw it out yet, you know? One thing I always keep in mind is there's a little beveled edge on pretty much all of these rulers. So on one side it's completely flat, the other side it's slightly lifted up some. So you want to keep that flat side up towards you because you want that beveled edge so that your pen doesn't slip under the flatness of the ruler and create a smudge. Even with a marker that's possible, but definitely with other brushes it can, brushes or pens, the ink will actually leak right under you. I'm sure we've all had that experience. So this marker has a little bit of give to it, so I don't know if you can tell, but it does go from thin to a slightly thicker. But I'm also just going to create this sort of a double line effect. And I'm tilting the pen as I go. So I start at this angle to keep it further away from the ruler, and then I'll go like that, and it brings it in to create. See how now definitely you can see the thickness. And I'm even going to leave this little bit of white line in here. I don't know if you can even register it, but that's because the train is going fast. There's going to be, I know there's already going to be a bunch of other sort of action lines here. And I just want to accentuate that movement. And having that little teeny tiny bit of line of white showing in between, I think works almost as its own action line, you know? I'm going to keep this train super simple, very much like something you would see in the Batman animated show. Not overly complicated, you know. So again, I'm going to start, move the pen up here. I'll start where you can see it better. I'm going to start with the pen leaning out like this at an angle. You can see how far out I am from it. And then as I tilt the pen up, it comes in and matches the line. Pen was out. I mean, it was a little far away from the brush, from the ruler, so
touch it up a little bit there. And I'm gonna let some of those lines still show, yeah. I really want to get these couple of lines just because they're near Batman. I was telling myself I'm going to wait till near the end to ink Batman, but I'm impatient. So let's get right into inking Batman here and see what happens. Drinking some coffee. Coffee's important in the morning. So here I've kind of got this, I like this idea of the shadow down here, because with the shadow, I want to do a bunch of sort of action lines and use the shadow to really help accentuate the speed, which means the lighting is going to come from above. So all the thicker lines on him are going to be below him. So as his chest comes down, first line, guys, you ready? And I'm going to make it one smooth line instead of really going to like describe his chest. There you go. I try and get it right the first time because there's a really tiny microscopic differences in the brush when I go in to touch it up like that. I don't think most eyes see it, but I see it, and it's less than perfect, you know. And typically I'm not a perfectionist, but in certain lines I am trying to be as perfect as possible, especially important ones like that. All right, I like this. I like how this is looking. Now I'm just gonna freehand, I guess is the word, the highlights on his gloves here. There you go. Keeping in mind that this is gonna be black from the shadow, so I gotta think. I think I still want these to be solid black. I don't know what these are called. What would you call these on Batman? Well, even though the shadow is going to be black under him, there's going to be a lot of lines, so I will sort of feather around the shape, and you'll see what I mean when I get there. These little extensions of the line I'm doing to just sort of accentuate the sense of speed and him gripping the train. It might not completely make sense, but I feel like it works. That line didn't work out there, did it? No big deal. So as you guys know now, if you've been watching these videos for a bit, I enjoy working both digitally and traditionally. They offer different things. There's no beating a brush, just the way it feels, the way it interacts with paper. There's a small amount of unpredictability or just randomness that brushes will give you that you just can't get digitally. But you also can't trade out the speed of digital versus traditional. Simply for the fact that I don't have to wait for the ink to dry. You'd be surprised at how much of a factor that can be. I'm going to fill in more black on his hand, but I'm going to wait until I've kind of figured out exactly how I'm doing the shading on the speed shadow. I guess that's the line. Sounds like a early 90s character. Speed shadow. Yeah, we'll see how that looks. Something funky about this area here I'm not super happy with, but it still works. Thinking about this extreme angle that he's at and his belt and the utility belt thing and like how those shapes would be different from this angle. I think that'll be okay. I think that works. I feel like it does. All right, scary part. Let's do his face. I don't know why I said it like that. You know, there's something as I'm looking at this, I'm feeling like the golden age flared out ears, which I love so much. Either I didn't draw it right, or maybe because of the shape of his face, it's just not quite called for. Yeah, I'm gonna go for just a slightly reworked vibe. Now, a question here is often like, do I keep his mask mostly black with more of an open cape in the back, or do I leave an outline around the mask? I'm gonna do a little bit of both. And bat symbol here. There you go. Oh, I like the way that worked out. Okay. I can kind of see it in my mind's eye. I was wondering about this, maybe doing this kind of shadow on it. Almost like the old Batman of like the 70s and stuff, just always had this shadow there. Let's try that. I think that'll feel good. I could be wrong. Going big with his eyes here. This is going to be more of the closer to Batman animated kind of stuff than, say, more of a mainstream Batman. The one time I did write and draw my own Batman story, I played the style sort of in between. You know, I mean, obviously my art's always cartoony-ish. But there are times where I can put more of an edge to it and more detail and rendering. So I did something sort of in between for that Batman story. But I'm still hoping to do more in the future and play around with it more in this style. I mean, after all, it is what got me to draw this way. You know, this sort of, well, not sort of, but it was definitely the Bruce Timm Batman animated stuff. I was trying to get work on that book. Ironically, I couldn't really do the style or, you know, the style guides, you know. I just couldn't quite grasp it, but it did send me in this direction. So yeah, it would be really cool to eventually do some sort of Batman animated kind of thing. So you may be asking, like, well, why are you filling in black before doing more of the area? Do you do more of the area before you fill in black? And that sort of questions and stuff. Like, you know, sometimes an instinct of sorts sort of just takes over. Sometimes those instincts drive you to good places and sometimes bad places. Anyway, I'm going to work on the cape more after I sort of take care of his other parts. I had to think about that thumb a little bit as I started to ink it. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not sure what I'm thinking here. Like, in my mind, anatomy doesn't have to be correct. It just has to feel right. You know, I mean, obviously I'm much closer to Mignola or Kirby than I am, say, Alex Ross, or even one of the people who do really influence me, Steve Rude. I'm more of like, it should feel like a phone than look like a phone. It should feel like a gun than look like a gun, if any of that makes sense. I'm okay with that hand. Actually, it's kind of B+. So if I was doing this digitally, I would probably rework that hand digitally afterwards. But I'm also not ashamed of it. It's just like, okay. Meh. Such is life. Can't quite explain why I chose these shapes here. They're kind of antithetical to the actual shape of the cape. I mean, the shape is more like this, right? That's the shape. Sometimes doing something in the opposite shape that you're describing somehow actually accentuates it more than if I was doing lines that specifically just fold it in the exact same form. I don't know what that's about. And I don't know when it works and when it doesn't work. All I know is I find out when I'm done. I'm sorry that's not very useful. The other thing that I love about a traditionally drawn page, unlike a digital book, is, you know, how the brush reacts with the paper. And sometimes you get a little bit of dry brush here. I can do that in Photoshop, but I have to stop and switch my pens. Whereas here it just happens naturally, and then I can choose to use it or not. But like in Photoshop, it becomes 100% a choice. It's no longer an accident that happens, or an accident is even a wrong word, but you know, it's not an effect that happens naturally. Like I have to stop and think specifically, well, I want a dry brush thing here. And I'm sure you can tell I'm so not a perfectionist or a control freak, that I enjoy mistakes. I enjoy seeing things happen on the page that I didn't plan. That's why I like when I do color stuff, traditionally, I like watercolors, because watercolors will bleed and do things you never intended, which is also frustrating, but more rewarding than frustrating. Now, conversely, in working digitally, I do find it really, really rewarding when I'm using a paint bucket, and I'll drop the paint bucket someplace and say there's an opening here, and the bucket accidentally fills in black everywhere. Well, then I would see, oh wow, with just these highlights and the outline of his body and part of the train, maybe everything is in black and it's just this little bit of him that's popping out. And if it's too much black where it works in some spots or others where it doesn't, but I've accidentally filled it, I'll undo it, create a new layer, redo that accident, let it spill everywhere, and then just use the spots that work and discard the spots that don't. So that's a happy mistake that can happen digitally, which I can't do here, which is why some of my pieces will look just radically different from the originals, because there's way more black in the digital version, because I've discovered something like that. Or, you know, the original will have a hand that's less accurate, less pleasing than the actual printed version. All right, now before I do the shadow, which is what I want to do next, the speed shadow underneath him, I need to sort of finish out the train details. If you get this pen, this is weird. You'd think you take it off and to place it here, but it doesn't work, it doesn't fit, and it's got, I don't know what that's about, but I've learned if you just turn it over the other way, then it fits on. It's just odd. I'm also a little thick, so it took me months before I figured that out. We also hit our Kickstarter goal over, was it Thursday night, I think? Wednesday or Thursday night? I don't remember. But we hit our Kickstarter goal for After Realm #2. Super grateful for it, because when I launched it, it was right when the quarantine from pandemic kind of started for everybody. And I was really nervous. I was like, maybe I should postpone. Maybe I should hold off. But my general attitude is there's just so many unknowns right now. It's all you can do really is just keep moving forward as planned, and then adjust and, you know, come up with alternative plans as needed. Otherwise, you just sit there sitting on your hands not knowing what to do ever. So we launched even knowing that people are going to be tight with their money. I know I am, because things are uncertain. And I also felt like, yeah, people are going to be tight with their money because, unemployment is questionable for a lot of people. And we also raised the goal by $500. But all that said, people still came through for me, man. And I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, the whole thing is sort of an experiment as well, releasing it simultaneously through Image while doing a Kickstarter exclusive. It's good to help me mitigate my printing risks, but it also sort of divides the audience. If you're going to get it at the store, then why bother with a Kickstarter? But I particularly wanted to do Kickstarter as a way to help maintain the long-term health of what I want to do with Afterrealm. So, like, even if the market won't support it for any number of reasons that have nothing to do, or everything to do with my quality, I don't know, I still want to continue to do it because it is a real passion project. So that's why I want to do both. And also, I knew that, like, no matter how much I tweeted about it or talked about it or whatever, that there were still fans who would just never know that I had a Kickstarter going on, because they're just direct market fans, So combining those two is kind of an experiment, kind of a risk. And now it's extra hard to tell if it works or not because of the unknown factors thrown in by the coronavirus. So I'm thinking about, like, what I want to do in the future. I don't know if I'm at this point, I'll still do Kickstarter for the third one, but I was also thinking of just holding off until maybe I just start doing them more like trades instead of individual issues. I don't know. Just thinking. I'm also thinking I want to do a Kickstarter for an original thing, where the only way you can get it is through the Kickstarter, like that it's not also coming out through Image. Because that's what this thing was built for. That's what it was intended for. So I'd be interested to see if I have a different level of success there, doing something original. Maybe another art book. We'll see. I've also got some other original stuff. One of the things that I really want to do, I just don't know if other people want it for me. It's a collection of my, I guess you'd call it life drawings, although I'm not using a live model. That flat pen. A lot of people like that sort of abstract flat pen stuff that I'm doing, but it's just so far away from my regular, style. I just don't know how much of a market there is for it. But I guess that's what Kickstarter is great for. It's like, it doesn't need to be my normal comic book market. Like, people who don't know my work at all could be interested in. It's that stuff called Hawk Mother. You might have seen some bits of it around. It's abstract, old lady, witchy, kind of ugly, sexy, ugly drawings. I call it anti-erotic. The anti-erotic artwork of Mike Oeming. Who wants to buy that? But yeah, so I'm considering that. Another art book. Especially because with Kickstarter, because of the low numbers, it seems you're able to include sketches that are normally would get you in trouble if you were printing through a company, because you need certain permissions. So obviously this is why I set up the perspective lines was for this, for the speed shadows as I'm calling it. And I'm going to do these shadows going both ways. Speed lights are a funny thing because they really are expressionistic. Like, are these speed lines supposed to be expressing something that's coming out at you? Like the train, you're still and the train is moving past you, or are you moving with the train? I feel like doing the line work going in both directions here, it gives a feeling that you're going with him. I don't want these to be too even. Like, I could make these almost laser-like perfect. But that does the opposite of creating a sense of speed or movement. It creates a sense of stagnation. The perfection just makes it still. It's beautiful, but still. Like, you'd want to maybe illustrate a vase or a car with perfect lines if it's still. But if it's moving, to me, it makes sense to want to have the lines not be quite perfect and it's more expressive than perfect. Getting back to After Realm, we finally have we have a new release date. It was originally May, but now it'll be in June because of, well, comics. You know, our distribution system got pretty choked up. But yeah, we've only been bumped a month. That's not bad. But what is weird is that now makes issue 3 a September book. And it's drawn already. And I like to work ahead of schedule, but wow. I'm so far ahead on After Realm now, it's nuts. But I guess that's good because I've got other things to do. There's my main work with Bendis doing Murder Inc. I've got a graphic novel that Taki and I are going to do with Mags Visaggio. I apologize for murdering her name. Just more Justice League or Young Justice that I'm supposed to do at some point. So it's good that it's that far ahead, but, you know, it's a passion project. So I want to work on it now, but then it also feels weird to work on something that's like so incredibly far ahead. But it's not, that's not the worst thing. Babbling. Anyway, here I'm going to use this dry brush to help, again, with sense of speed. And all I'm doing is just moving the brush pretty quickly and lightly, instead of moving it slower and more purposely is going to create a solid line, but faster, especially if I'm just flicking it like this. It's going to help create more of this sense, dry brush and speed. but I also want to make sure that it doesn't look like there's this sudden stop and dry brush to that, to those lines. So I'm going to try and even it out some. Yeah, that'll look good. I'm done with all the hard stuff. He says, actually, I bet this ink is getting low. What I love about these pens, yeah, I can tell it's getting a little low. So I can take this out. This comes with the pen. And then I've got some syringes, which I just ordered off of Amazon, very small ones, and fill in my own ink. I absolutely love that. Unfortunately, I think both my brush pens here are almost out of ink. Shit. Yeah, so I might have to stop and fill these. Yeah. That's another drawback to analog, right? You gotta clean your pens. You've gotta fill the ink, and that's one of the things I love about digital. I could just keep going, especially if you're in the flow or making a video like right now. Of course, I can pause it and come back, but it does still break up the current flow that I've got going, including just the courage to talk to you guys. You look at my earlier videos, I didn't really speak or show my face or anything. But I've learned over time that people want to hear and see a little bit. So here I am. You'd think somebody who does or has done a lot of conventions and stuff, I'd be more comfortable. But in the last 10 years, I've really, really retracted from the public eye. I rarely do cons. I still do interviews and stuff, but not tons. A lot of people ask me and I'm like, yeah. And then I never get back, which is rude. But often I lose track. I'm just focused on both work and home life. You know, Taki, most days are great, but she's got multiple sclerosis. So sometimes that's just the day. Doesn't leave a lot of time for travel or podcasts and stuff. Doesn't get in the way that much, to be honest. But there's something psychologically that just makes you want to sort of hold up, I guess. And I guess I'm just mentioning that because I know a lot of people have trouble with this part of the art, which is representing themselves or just being out there, putting themselves out there. It's not easy. You know, you're open up to a lot of criticism. Sometimes you ask for it because you're posting stuff, you know, but a lot of times that criticism is just ugly. I find most of that criticism is in my head. When I think about the negative interactions I've had on Twitter, it's been minimum, and most of the ones I do have are half my fault because I engage instead of just ignoring somebody or something, you know. But in the past, I can't say how many years offhand, but Taki and others, Brian Bendis, David Walker, a few others have shown me the way of just don't engage with people being negative. All you do is accidentally raise their profile or encourage them and waste energy, you know. So if you do have trouble, sort of as a creator and artist, reaching out and being yourself because of some of that social media stuff, it is in your control how you react to it, and it just takes a lot of practice. Obviously, it's different if you're getting threats, you know. That's not the same thing as people being assholes or even harassing you, but actual threats and stuff, you know, and there's ways to go about that. But I guess the point is, I'm getting sidetracked, I apologize. It's up to us how we react. The only thing we can control is ourselves. And sometimes that means, just getting over our insecurities. I have them. I mean, just this morning, I'm sitting there with Taki, and we're breakfast and looking over Instagram, and I saw some artwork that I'm just like, why am I even trying? I mean, that wasn't a real thought, but that was part. I was just like, I'll never be this good. But you can't sit there and compare yourself to other people. Otherwise, there'd only be one artist left in the world. That's whoever the best artist is. I don't even know how to figure that out. I know, I'm babbling. Sometimes when I'm working like this, like the front of my mind is here on the inks and controlling these little brush lines. I mean, I'm getting in there pretty closely to this line, and this is a big, thick, fucked up brush. Like, I don't know if you can, how well you can see it. Yeah, there's no real tip on it. So it's all my forward thinking mind is there with the brush, and my babbling is coming from the back of my head. But I'm sure you guys have figured out before I even started talking about it. Like, oh, okay. He's in two places at once. He's on the page, and he's blabbing. But I have struggled with social media in the past. I was going to quit a couple of times. Then I realized, yeah, you know what? It's the way that I'm reacting to things. Got to use my own powers of discernment, you know? There's a lot in our control that I think we forget is in our control. Boy, I'm taking chances with this brush. But I just don't want to stop and fill in my pens. I mean, basically, I'm going to be done here. I don't know that I want to really record doing the minutia of the trees and the buildings, so it's going to take a little while. I do need to buy, I want to buy an old iPhone to do these recordings, because I can't do certain things with my phone while it's recording, obviously, or even while I'm uploading these really long videos. They take a while. This is already 50 minutes. See what this looks like without. There you go. Look at that. I think that's going to be fun. What do you think? Should I fill in his pants, his outer underwear? Maybe. Right now I'm thinking about the trees and stuff and what I want to do. You know what, I'm going to leave this here for now. I'll give myself some time to think about the trees and how I want to execute that. And I'll make that into a second video. Or maybe just a series of Instagram clips. We'll see. I still have to address this, and I still have to address that. I want to think, do I want to go with big, thick, brushy lines indicating the leaves? If I want to break out the quill to do some thinner, smaller stuff, show a lot of detail, or just do shapes. It's hard to say. They're two different approaches. So I'm going to think about that off camera, and thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you for part 2. Okay, so I put some thought into it, and I think I'm going to do something fun with these trees. I'm going to go for mostly solid shapes, but with white outlines for the tree and tree branches. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the tree branch stuff first. Okay, I'm back. I just figured that would just be way too boring to sit through watching these little tree branches happen. Now I use this kind of more messed up brush a little bit because it was fine, because there's no like real fine details in here. Also, I'm going to use some super rare for me, super rare for me, whiteout. I'm going to use one of those white pens in here to create more, what's that word I'm looking for? Branches. And I'm going to continue to use this brush to make large, thick shapes here on the trees, tree branches. I'm going to warn you right now and not give you a heart attack. I have a habit of holding, when I'm using brush a lot, to hold the ink in my hand instead of over on the side. And I've seen that freak people out. I remember way back in the day, I was at Gaijin Studios, and Cully Hamner saw me doing this and he almost had a heart attack. Okay, so again, everything is moving this way, so the brush strokes, the so-called tree shape, or the leaves, I want to kind of generally go in this direction, you know? And I'm going to do sort of 2 layers of this. One is going to be with this thicker. Oh, I should have just drawn out the perspective lines. Would have been easier for me. But anyway, this larger brush, which is going to be thicker, and then I'll use like a thinner brush to do some other details. Actually, I'm going to let that dry and quickly do some perspective lines, because as I'm moving the page around, it gets easy to lose track of where that perspective is actually coming from. I mean, I know where it's coming from, but just moving it around and also talking, this will just help. I had the upside down. That's why you heard that scraping sound, because I had the flat side down. I guess it's still scraping. I don't know anything. You've come to the wrong place if you come to learn things. It doesn't have to be exact. Like, I don't need it exactly lined up the way it is for the train. You know, I just need the direction. See, I could feel it here. Like this was coming more like this direction instead of here. So this will help out a lot. All right, where did I put the ink? Here we go. The ink bottle. Get the brush, and we're back. And this feels good. Like working old school, digital. A lot of times when I work digitally, there are brushes, the brushes that come with, you know, either Photoshop or Clip Studio. And you can also create your own brushes that have tree shapes or leaf shapes. And I try to mix in some hand-drawn stuff along with that. Because it's still, I mean, it reads as, when you see CG leaves, CG? I don't know if you call it that, but you know, digitally created leaves. And you'll see it in my work sometimes. And I think it just still registers as cold. It still registers in your head as something artificially created by a program as opposed to something that you drew. So I try to mix in those two elements. So when I'm doing something like this, it just feels good to actually just old school quote the way it should be done. It just feels good. I like this so far. So far, so good. I also try to, when I'm doing these lines like this that are all coming from the same sort of direction, I try to stack them in odd ways. Like, don't do this. Like, it's just creating too much uniformity. And then it just looks like dots lined up instead of random leaves. At least to me. That's how I register it in my head. I'm out of thoughts right now. So I'm just gonna ink silently. You just listen to my dog snore. This kind of shit gets meditative. Not to get new agey on you guys or anything. Well, it's not new agey, it's science now. Do you meditate? I was doing TM for quite a while. That's twice a day, 20 minutes a day of meditation. And it's quite the commitment. It's like going to the gym, you know. It's hard to get back into once you've stopped. Once you start, it's a momentum that you need, and you feel it. I have a lot of neurotic thoughts, and I'm an anxious person, so it's super helpful. It would be very, very helpful during this time period. I wish I had the discipline to pick it up again. It's just hard because it is such a commitment. But I'll tell you, man, when I was doing it on a regular, I was much better off for it. I really, really got to get back into it again. But everything feels like time. Time is a crunch right now. I have less time to work now during this pandemic than more. A lot of our time is just eaten up on dealing with it. prepare her own food, that kind of thing. 'Cause, you know, Taki's got a suppressed immune system from her medication. Paperwork we're filling out for financial assistance and all that stuff. I mean, we're okay right now, kind of okay, but you know, you got to look out for yourself, and I don't know what's going to be like in the next couple months. And I can't pick up work the way I was able to months ago, where, you know, you just kind of look around and there's jobs. You need a little extra cash flow that month, you can pick up some other cover work or something, but there's nothing like that right now. Anyway, the whole point, this is kind of a meditation now, is doing stuff like this, filling in this huge black area and just being repetitive, clear my mind of all the other tensions of the day. Yeah, I'm really liking the way that's coming together. Something a little funky here, I don't know what. Do I have the right glasses on? Fuck. What really sucks, working, so I'm 47 now, and I've been dedicated to drawing comics and this kind of heavy detailed close-up stuff since I was 13 on a hardcore regular basis. It's not like it was a hobby, it was just everything that I did. And I've always had great eyesight, but those days are over, and it sucks. So for you younger folks, take care of your eyes. If you're going to be an artist, there's things you can do. I wish I'd done before, the blue blockers, that kind of stuff. That really helps. But now my eyesight, as I get older, it just gets harder all the time. So like, I can tell I'm due for a new set of glasses soon, because I'm like, am I wearing the right glasses? Oh shit, yeah, these are the right glasses. It used to be like, if I felt like they were the wrong glasses, I was like, oh, I've got my reading glasses on, not my drawing glasses. But guess what, Mike? You've got your drawing glasses on. Fuck. So, gonna have to take care of that soon. Yeah, I dig the way this is working. I was trepidatious starting, because this is my warm-up. just going right into it. I don't really do the warm-up drawings. I just do the go-to drawings. A little too much ink on the brush here, so I'm not going to get any dry in there. The dry brush effect here is really going to help sell the sense of speed and movement. Getting a little too uniform in there, so I may consciously make some much smaller brush marks up from the front, and then some thicker ones as it gets back more. You guys are pretty amazing to be sticking through the video all the way to here if you're listening to it. If you are, leave a comment below. I want to see that people are hanging in all the way through, even with what I would think is incredibly boring to watch. Not like this stuff, but, you know, this kind of thing. Although, to be honest, I'm just as interested in these things when I watch these other videos. You know, there's that manga artist I've talked about a couple times, and he uses his, the G pen for everything, pretty much. Akihiro Yoshitiro. Shit. I'm learning his name. Anyway, I'll leave a link below. And some of my favorite parts is when he's using that G pen on little tiny details, like he's making grass and plant shapes. You know, again, not a literal plant that you can identify, but like just the way he's noodling that G pen to create the shape of plants, and you know that's what it is. And they could be mushrooms, it could be little flowers, but it's not that it's specific. It's just indicating what the object is. It's this little tiny flexible nib. It's pretty amazing. So maybe this is the equivalent of that. If you're still listening, maybe you dig all the details and I think I'm feeling lazy because I'm not, you know, earlier I was doing some really close line work filling in with this brush, and here I'm being very shy for some reason. So I'm gonna have to use another pen to go in through here to fill in the lines around the tree. And obviously when you see ink getting on the light box here, yeah, I've got to clean it off from time to time, especially when it kind of gets in the middle area here. Ooh, that's a lot more dry brush than I intended. Okay, no big deal. No big deal. I have to really back up the camera for you to see the whole thing here, but it's coming together pretty good. I think all I really want to do is just fill in this area a bit, and we'll be done. Not done with the whole thing, just with this section. Like I said, I'm going to use some whiteout pen to draw more branches in here. Not a ton. I don't want to get carried away. Yeah, I'm going to finish the rest of that with the brush pen. Because the brush has a shape to it, I like to move it around so that I don't end up giving that same shape to everything, everywhere on these little abstract leaf shapes. All right, I think that's good for now for that. Give me a second to clean off the brush. Again, the whole stopping of the process when you're working analog. In a way, it's great, gives you a little break, but I don't want to break. Like, I want to keep moving forward. Momentum is important to me. Okay. Where's the brush pens? Here we go. And this brush is just about out of ink, so I'm really pushing it here. It's gonna be a little thin, the ink. So like on the originals, you'll be able to kind of see that it's lighter here. That's okay, not a big deal. Oh, there's some more down here. Alrighty, oh, no, there's more here. More. I gotta pause this anyway, take a quick break, and I'll be back. All right, so I'm back. So for this next section, like I said, I'm gonna use some of this whiteout pen to create a little bit more branches here. One of the things I did first was erase the little bit of sketchy stuff I had there, because if I erase afterwards, that's gonna dirty up the white areas that I've just laid down with this. In fact, I should have done everything else first and do the white last. That would be the smart move. But I'm impulsive and I wanna do this now. So get a little piece of practice paper here to make sure that the white is flowing. You squeeze it a little bit, get some out. Make sure it's flowing, squeeze it here. Okay. I like to pull this towards me, so. I mean, other artists make it look so good. Yeah, I'm looking at it without the light box behind it. It looks a lot better, but still tricky as shit. I've seen other artists use this and it just almost looks like a natural tool. Here, I'll shut off the light box. There you go, I can see it better. I'm definitely gonna use this sparingly because I'm not crazy with the way it looks. I'm gonna have to do some fixing around it too. Tell me, you tell me, like, do you guys use this tool? Are you having better? Oh, that looks stupid. All right, just a few more lines just to kind of fill these out. Yeah, let me know if you have any tips on this. I'm squeezing it as I'm using it to try and keep it flowing. But, you know, the ball leaves that line underneath it. Maybe I simply need more practice at drawing. Well, we all need that. But I mean, practice using this. It fills out a little bit. Good news is this whiteout stuff, it dries pretty quickly. So I would say this experiment of using the whiteout in here is somewhat successful. Yeah, somewhat successful. All right, I'm not think about that for now. I'm gonna again use this kind of the older beat up pen, and I'm gonna work on the tunnel that he's coming out of here. You know, being Gotham, of course, this is gonna be an older, like bricky tunnel, you know? So I'm gonna make sure I give this a lot of little bounce to it, dimension like a brick tunnel would have. On the top of this tunnel, you know, I purposely set up the vanishing point like right here. So we're gonna get a lot of the bricks. I'm gonna aim right there too. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna freehand this line as well. As part of the bridge or whatever it is Batman's coming out of. And I'm going freehand because it's an older bridge. It's meant to be organic, you know, made out of bricks and that kind of thing. But I could have just as well justified using a straight line because it's in the distance. So all those like little hand details, the movement and stuff, you probably wouldn't see from a distance. You would just see a smooth line. My real question here is if I want to do all the bricks on here or just indicate some. I'm not sure. Let me fill out some more of the train though. These other details that help describe the shape. There you go. So one of the reasons why I should have done the white stuff last was even moving the ruler around like this, I could be tracking either lead or whatever older dirt or dust is on the ruler, or that I might accidentally pick up and then it'll dirty it up and stuff. Although being in this like sort of motion area, I don't think it's that big of a deal. All right, so what am I gonna do for these long action lines? I'm going to use this Uniball pen. Actually, my favorite Uniball pen is a thinner one. it's this, and I've used this a lot for a lot of my monochrome ink lines and other sort of renderings and stuff. But these are going to be these long streaking action lines. I really should get a new ruler. It's all yellowed and stuff and chipped. All right, so find the vanishing point up here. This I do want to have lined up with everything. And I'm going to do like these thin, long manga lines. Now by that kind of like light lifting action, that quick flick you hear at the end, it's creating like a thinner line here. Boy, you can see this little chunk I've got on my pen, on the ruler, to create those little lines there. But I'm kind of committed now because, well, fuck it. I was gonna say it's hard to find that vanishing point exactly lined up the same again, but I don't want that chip in there. Guess it's time for my cheap ass to buy another $3 ruler. Can also like kind of double up on some of these lines. So like I want to differentiate the thickness of this line that I drew on the train that indicates part of like a panel or something. So by changing the angle, not moving the ruler at all, just change the angle of the pen, I get these different thicknesses. There you go, look at that. Little sound effect for you. Now with his shadow coming over here, I want to create sort of a contour to these speed lines that complement the shadow he's casting. So you see how like the outline of his shadow, oh fuck me, I left a little line there. The outline of his shadow goes this way, so is the contour of the action lines. That pisses me off. I'm so angry. Oh well. I'm thinking as I'm doing this, how can I make up for that? Because that is definitely a line that's going to show on the original. I can try putting some other speed lines down around it, to sort of hide it like a guitar player with distortion, or maybe put some other texture lines. You know, little dents and scratches onto the train itself. That way it gets kind of disguised, you know. I'm just comparing it to that side, and it looks like I've got a couple of action lines that come all the way down, so I want it to be even on both sides. This is an effect you can also do in, again, why I love Clip Studio. It was built for this stuff. So you just set up a perspective grid, and every line that you draw, no matter what the thickness or thinness of your line is going to point to that perspective vanishing point. It's so useful. Yeah, it's okay, right? That's all right. I don't know if I want line work coming over here. Maybe like a really thin line. I think a thin line on this section of the train kind of around him will serve a purpose. I can't say exactly what that purpose is, but it just feels like it'll be right. So I'll find the vanishing point again. It is around here. Actually, this way, I want to do lines coming at us now. Going back and forth, like both lines are going away from us and they're coming at us. And I think that really indicates speed and direction. At least I think it does. Maybe it doesn't. But I've seen it on different artists using speed lines going in more than one direction, and it seems to work. By direction, I mean it goes thicker and thinner in one direction versus the other. Not like that. It's just headed towards the vanishing point and stuff. It feels like I should have it all the way on the edges here too. I actually have the vanishing point marked down. It's just under all this ink now. I also typically don't use line work this thin, but I've had some conversations recently with some buddies, specifically Alex Maleev, great dude. He's really encouraging me to try and just use a little more texture, different brushes and pens and stuff. And I'm like, all right, small steps, baby steps. I'm just thinking right now, trying to figure out. Well, I think with the tunnel, I'm going to do black lines streaking out of here. The problem is my brushes need to be refilled. So I can't do that at this moment and show you. And the city's going to take a little time. I don't know if I'm going to do that freehand or with a ruler. I think this will be it for now. And I will show you the finished product at the end, just because this is getting really long. Take care, guys. Okay, I took the time to clean out my pens. So I'm going to show you this area here. I mean, look at that. One of the things it drives me nuts about. I've been spoiled working digitally because it doesn't smear. There's no surprise. Like, I don't even know where or when that happened. I don't know if you can see it. Some of it might actually erase. We'll see. So my vanishing point is basically in here. Just have to remember it's slightly above that. And well, I guess it wouldn't hurt to do a couple of vanishing point lines. Right, so technically it's here. I'll just put a couple of lines here to just help guide my eye. There you go. These lines I'm making a little bit more perfect than the other speed lines down here, because this is almost more of like of an action explosion. You know, it's coming out of the tunnel. It's a little bit more of like a emphasis, an exclamation point than the speed lines earlier. And that said, my tip on this brush is starting to act a little funky. So it's not as precise as I'd like it to be. And these little split ends are happening. Sometimes it's just, I mean, this is an older brush pen, but it's one of the things I love about this brush pen is it lasts a long time. But maybe it's time to replace it. Could just be too much ink being released at once because I just filled it with ink. This will be tricky because it's so small. Okay. And again, if this was for publication, just fix stuff in Photoshop. Nice and easy peasy. Well, I thought showing this might be good, like it gives a little bit of depth or whatever, but it's actually just distracting my eye too much. I think this needs a little more brush, a little more leaf action. Okay. I think the hand here is just fine. Like other than this little extra little action line that I pulled off of his finger. When I threw that down on an instinct, and it wasn't the right instinct. It's not horrible. I mean, it's fine. I do think his underwear, his outerwear, should be black, or mostly black. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. All right, his hand is out in the open here, so there you go. I don't know, I'm tempted to just make that all black there. And this should be all black. Yeah, I like that a lot better. I feel like it's a little weak over here and he needs to have a stronger line. I'm hesitant to do this though because, like I said, you can just feel when there's a line on top of another line when somebody's been building something. So I do this sometimes. I'll do like a practice line. Could just use the light box too, but dudes, that worked out. And dudettes. All right, remember what I said down here? Just put these little chunks. And all of that is just a cover of one line. But it works. You know, I'm happy with it. I think with the bridge, I'm just going to end up doing it, do some wide rendering. Just thick indications of break and texture. And keep it all very horizontal, just like the bridge is, which will help differentiate the lines that are in the tree. I might do a few more, but not much more. And like I said, now for real, oh wait, I was gonna stop it, but I wanna show you how I'm gonna touch up the tree limbs. See, just gonna clean it up some. There you go. That looks better already. Just get rid of that. So little details like this, I'm gonna finish up towards the end with the city up there, a little cityscape. So now, for real, I'm gonna stop. And then I'll show you the finished thing when it's done. Just because, again, this is long. And I've got other things to do. I'm gonna stop for lunch. Taki will be here in the studio, and you know, got to take care of some other stuff. And it's gonna be hard to record and do all that at the same time. So, for now, here we go. I hope you've been enjoying the process. Please leave any questions below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'll be back in like 1 second to show you the final. And here we go. This is the final product. I decided to sort of hand draw everything in the background there, all the city stuff. I've always liked a kind of organic feeling city. Again, it was digital. I might go ahead and add some more stuff into there. I would also like to just sort of put this away for a day or two and then look at it fresh. And then I would really decide what extras needed to be added, if any. And that's it. Pretty happy with the way this came out. Let's practice. Just something fun to do. Batman's always fun. Can't deny that. And I hope you had fun watching the video and watching the little tricks and learning little bits and pieces here and there, hopefully. And that's it.